I've had enough of you for 4 days. I'm going to bring on some handlers. He's here for a short time. You're going to love him. The floor's yours, my son.
Thanks, Colin.
Good evening, ladies.
Good evening.
Tonight, I would like to take you on a journey into Scotland's rich, colourful, but sometimes bloody past. I want to take you back more than 260 years to events that changed the lives of all of the people who lived in this part of Scotland. To events that led to the last battle ever fought on British soil, on Drumossie Moor, on the fields of Culloden. But before I do that, let me introduce myself. I am a Highlander. I am a Jacobite clansman. I fought with bonny Prince Charlie at the Battle of Culloden on the 16th of April in the year 1746. Now, some of you might have heard of my prince as the Young Pretender, but his name was Charles Edward, Louis John, Casimir Sylvester, Xavier Maria, Sobieska Stuart. He certainly had plenty of names, didn't he?
Sure.
Now, if you're wondering where the name Jacobite comes from, Jacob is from the Latin for James, and therefore we Jacobites, we were supporters of James, and that James was the last of the Stuart kings. He was King James the Seventh of Scots. He was also King James the Second of England, and he was chased from his throne in the year 1688 because of his Catholic beliefs. And we Jacobites, we rose up to put a Stuart king back on the throne. Now, at this time, we were led by the greatest general that the Jacobites ever had, a man called John Graham of Claverhouse, Viscount Dundee. He was also known as Bonnie Dundee, or Bloody Clavers, depending, of course, on whose side you fought. Well, he led us to a great victory at a place called Killiecrankie. On the 27th of July in the year 1689, a man called General Hugh Mackay was leading 4,000 government troops through the pass at Killiecrankie on his way to Blair Athol, when up on the heights he spotted Dundee. And Dundee had 2,000 clansmen with him. Camerons, MacDonalds of Glengarry and Macleans. They all stood there, up on the heights, menacing the redcoats below, until finally the order to charge was given. A full Highland charge right down the hill and directly into the redcoat ranks. And guess what the redcoats did? They dropped their muskets and ran away. Well, of course, one thing I didn't tell you about the Highland charge. Before a Highlander charges into battle, he removes his plaid so he can run faster.
Can we have a demonstration?
Later. And I suppose you're wondering what a Highlander wears beneath his plaid.
No.
Brace.
The answer's nothing. Nothing but a long shirt. So no wonder those redcoats ran away. Wouldn't you if there was 2,000 semi-naked hairy Highlanders? Hands up those who said no. Well done. 2,000 semi-naked hairy Highlanders charging down the hill directly in... Well, no wonder the redcoats ran away. Anyway, that was a great victory at Killiecrankie, but at far, far too high a cost. Bonnie Dundee was killed, shot, it said, with a Brown Bess musket. And 26 years later, in the year 1715, at a place called Sheriff Muir, when we were being chased from the field of battle because of poor leadership, a lone clansman was heard to lament, "Oh, for an hour of Dundee, If only he had lived, what a difference he might have made to the Jacobite cause. Now, before I go on with my story, let me tell you something about what I'm wearing here tonight. If you look in my bonnet, I have a white cockade. When Bonnie Prince Charlie first set foot on the Scottish mainland, he picked a white rose and stuck it on his bonnet. And that forever became the badge of the Jacobites. And what I'm wearing here is called a plaid, or in Gaelic, its name is Philomore, which means big blanket or big wrap. And that's exactly what it is. It's just one piece of material. This one is 5 yards in length, somewhere as long as 8 yards by 1.5 yards wide. And every morning I lay it out on the floor. You put the pleats in by hand. That's called kilting. And that's where the name for the modern kilt comes from. When the pleats are all in place, you lie down on top of them to keep them there. And you wrap the aprons around the front. You pass a belt under your back. The whole thing is held in place by a belt. There's no stitching of any kind in it. And when I stand up, well, I'll just show you. When I stand up, the long ends reach all the way to the floor. This, I said, is called the philomore. More in Gaelic is big. So it's the big blanket, the big wrap, the big kilt. Beneath it, and all part of the same piece of material, is the small kilt, or the philabeg it's called. Now, the whole process from beginning to end shouldn't take more than 2 or 3 minutes to put the plaid on. From where I am now, you take this corner here, put a small triangle in it, fold it in half, and tuck it into your waistband, like so. I do the same here. Small triangle, fold it in half, tuck it into my waistband here, tidy the front, and this is how I was wearing it tonight because it's so warm in here. I don't want anything hot up in this part of my body, but there's lots of different ways to wear it. On a cold winter's day, and you might be surprised to hear, but we do get 1 or 2 of them around here. On a cold winter's day, I'll wear it like this.
Oh, yeah.
Keeps me nice and warm. On a cold and a wet winter's day, well, I just have to do that. So it's a very practical garment. I can also take it over the shoulder and pin it with a brooch, which gives me a great big deep pocket here, another big deep pocket here. Indeed, the pockets go all the way around the back. So we were first to invent the backpack as well. And of course, at night, it's your blanket and your sleeping bag. As I said, a very practical garment. It goes back more than 1,000 years. And it's not to be mistaken for the modern kilt. Indeed, you might be surprised to hear, but the modern kilt was actually designed by an Englishman. A man called Rowlingson. He had a foundry down in the Loch area. He was fed up with the men getting these great big pockets caught in all the machinery. So he called in a seamstress. She cut the top of the plaid and stitched the pleats in place, thus making the modern kilt. Trust an Englishman to spoil a good idea. And if you look at my sporran here, now it isn't like the modern sporrans you'll see. They're